my melanin is popping.
I'll tell you right now, I love my melanin.
There's actually 50 shades of melanin.
Legalize it. Yeah. Melanin.
Women have rights.
Pussy power. Pussy power.
No abortion bill. These white men can't control a woman's right. No
My
abortion
body,
bill.
my choice. My body, my choice.
No abortion
My
bill.
body,
These white
my
men
choice.
can't control a woman's right.
My choice.
No abortion bill. These men can't control these women's right.
My body, my choice. My body, my choice. Can't control me. Not the pussy.
Wait. Whoa, not the pussy. Oh, God. Hey, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Highly Melanated. Highly melanated.
Honey melanated.
Highly melanated.
Honey melanated.
Highly melanated.
Honey melanated.
Melanated podcast. PJ Bugs Bunny here.
Yushi Baps.
Prince Ali Red.
I went to go see that yesterday. It was amazing.
Don't take my shine.
I'm sorry, and I'm. Are we all doing cartoon characters? Sounds like so. I'm gonna be Blair Betty Boop.
Come on, big eyes.
The original Black Betty Boop, right? Good job. And also, we are joining the studio today with
Kelly Davis.
and
Deb Kaplan.
Deb Kaplan.
Two guests in the studio.
Two guests.
Two guests at one time.
Yes.
Double trouble.
And they are both here with the Department of Health. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Highly Melanated, where we melanate your palate and feed your soul. Get ready, get fed, guys. Get ready. We like to take the time to thank everybody who has taken the time to listen to our episodes. We would like to say just thank you for keep coming back. To all the new listeners, welcome.
Hola.
Bienvenue.
Aquaba.
It cracks me up every time she says that. I just can't help it. Yeah. So as always, you can follow us on social media, which would be Highly Melanated Podcast on Instagram. You can email us any questions, comments, concerns at highlymelanatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at H_melanatedpod. And you can also, like I said before, go to our website. That is highlymelanatedpodcast.com.
And good evening, everyone. It is Red Jeeves. I am here again today to go around the room, and I want to see who has a shout out and to possibly have some drinks and toasts. But first, the special of today, pro-choice, pro-life. What I would like to do right now is I would like to actually go around the room, and I would actually talk about I would like to see who has a shout out. We have some guests, so if you guys would like to have a shout out, any type of special greeting or saying something about something in the community, that would be great. And what would be your drink?
I can get us started. I would like a virgin pina colada. Thank you very much.
Again?
As always.
We have it on tap, ma'am.
That ain't never going to change.
Okay.
I don't drink alcohol, so my drinks are always sans alcohol. And my toast goes out to my friend Victoria, who threw an amazing Memorial Day cookout this weekend. It was just wonderful to be around so many, great people. And it was just, like I haven't been home in a very long time and around family. So, friends are the family that you choose. And so it was just a good experience to just be there around some good home-cooked food, which is amazing, and to be around a bunch of wonderful melanated people. We played a lot of black board games, which was a lot of fun. And, it was just a good time. So shout out to you, Tori, for throwing another epic Memorial Day barbecue.
Start off summer right.
Okay.
How about you, PJ or you, Sheeta? What would you like? What would you like to drink? What would you like to toast?
Actually, I would like to give my toast and my shout out to Red, please, if he can go before me. That'd be fantastic.
Of course, he can go.
To Red.
Of course, he can go. Hey, guys.
It's like a whole Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like kind of thing.
Right, I should like contort my body. I would like to just give a shout out to, this weekend was really about family. So once again, I'm on the same page as you, Blair. I would like to just give a shout out to my family. We spent Memorial Day yesterday together, where my mother and my father they got everybody together and we cooked. My sister and my brother-in-law was over with my niece. And it's just crazy to just like watch her. I know, I feel like that's all I talk about is just like my niece, but she's just so beautiful. She's 2 months old. Aww. And she already has like a lot of mobility. She's lifting her head. She's turning. She's like, and yesterday was the first time that she was, just out, outside like for an extended period of time. So she's like looking at everything and she's looking at the leaves and she's like looking at people, and so it was just a beautiful thing to just like watch just her just transform into this beautiful young lady. I mean, it's only 2 months, but for the rest of her life I just can't wait to see like what'll happen. So shout out to my family.
All right, shout out. What was your drink?
Long Island iced tea.
Okay. All right, then I'll just jump in now.
Yes. What would you like, sir?
Let's see.
Wait, I forgot the. What would you like, sir?
I'll have. Let's see. I'll have a side of white punch. You're like, okay, what is that?
I was like, okay.
That is actually my family's punch. A drink that we kind of make.
Nice.
That I found out this past weekend.
Okay.
So I didn't want to. I wanted to move it up to my melanated sense, but I guess we can just do it as a toast. And I wanted to give my toast to my entire family. I drove down. I didn't drive. We normally take a bus all the way down to North Carolina, and spend time with my entire father's side of the family, which is a really huge family. We took an entire bus. As we normally do, all the way from Brownsville, Brooklyn, all the way down to Greensboro, North Carolina. Had an amazing time, and my toast is always something that really means something to me, and because, I found my, as I said before that, we just became family because I just found them, and now I'm getting myself to know all of my brothers and sisters and my cousins and everybody, and I found my wolf pack because they're all lunatics, just like me. So,
what? You're crazy?
Yeah, no, yeah. So I want to give a toast to. I'll give the part one, the toast to them right now. So we had an amazing time down there.
The white punch on deck, sir.
Actually, no. Only brown goes in this drink.
Okay, only brown in your white punch. I'm so confused.
Only brown. These
Okay.
are some Negroes, yo. Hennessy, cognac, all types of stuff just went in this. I was like, oh.
You say.
Okay. Dose. Yeah, Dose. You know what? I'll have a shot of Dose, man.
Oh, boy.
That's actually what I drank on the way down.
Alrighty then.
This is Deb, and I'm going to stick to the family theme. I want to toast my granddaughter, Olive, who's 5 years old, and I spent the weekend with her and her mom. my daughter Emma and my husband Eric, and shout out to Zoe who couldn't make it. And Olive is just trying to figure out where she was before she was born. And we had a really interesting conversation about that. But where was I?
What is her final understanding?
She just said maybe she was in a star, which is actually pretty lovely.
I like it.
That is
Beautiful.
That is an actual great answer to tell.
I know. She's very existential already. And her drink, so I'll do 2 drinks, because one Olive is a pomegranate seltzer, which exists.
Okay.
Sounds delicious.
Good, actually.
That sounds good.
And I'm going to have a margarita with salt,
She
because
said like-
Kelly and I said we're going to have that after this show.
All around the rim. There you
Okay.
go.
Okay.
On the rocks or frozen?
On the rocks for me.
You want salt on the rim?
Yes,
Oh, you
please.
didn't say salt.
She
Okay.
did. All around the rim.
Absolutely, madam. We would be more than happy to give you that.
Thank you so much.
This is Kelly, and I think I was going to go with the margarita theme too, but in line with my southern roots, I have to have a watermelon margarita, but no syrup. It must be
Thank you.
freshly
Preach.
juiced watermelon. The watermelon with the seeds.
That's
Okay.
right.
We have that back here
Okay,
at
so
Highly
that's the
only
Melanated
way.
Manor.
That's what I'm going to be toasting, and I'm going to raise a toast to one of my besties, Sharia K. Jackson, who really personifies what my squad is about. She's an author, and this week she debuted her book on Steve Harvey's television show, and the night before she was definitely on the phone praying over me while I was having like a moment. So friends that are still your friends and holding you even when they got, cliffhanger stuff going on in their life really is who's holding me down.
Madam, that is not a friend. That is family.
That's right.
Here's to day one.
That's right.
Congrats to your friend. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
Amazing.
That is. So I would like to give a toast. First, I would like a Bloody Mary, extra bloody, please, extra spicy. Top shelf only.
Oh, my. Of course. Anything for you, Yushi.
Light on the ice. Thank you. And I would like my toast. It's going to be a kind of a 2-part, and it's going to lead into the second part. So number one, everybody is talking about Memorial Day. We just came up from Memorial Day. I spent it with my family. It was great. We chopped down a hickory tree and put some of those hickory sticks on the fire to make our food. It was amazing.
All right
it
now.
was great. It was amazing. But I just wanted to specifically shout out, since I come from a military family, that Memorial Day was originally known as Decoration Day, which originally honored only those who were fighting and who we lost during the Civil War. And then it officially became a holiday, a federal holiday in 1971, and it honored all of those that we lost in war. So I just wanted to just give that little piece of history. But going into it, so my toast goes out to Daniel Wall, who created a stamp that is currently being used to superimpose Tubman's image over President Andrew Jackson's portrait on the $20 bill. The Treasury Department has delayed the bill's redesign, saying that it will not be an issue that comes up until 2026, which it was supposed to come up a lot more before that, according to our President Barack Obama. So Daniel Wall has sold more than 600 of these on Etsy. He's currently out of stock, but if you go on his website, you can download a way to make your own stamp. There are 2 stamping stations in New York City, which are on his website, and there's a video that shows that the Tubman stamp is actually being accepted into various different vending machines. So go get your stamp, keep it in circulation, and that's a one-up for us women.
Woohoo.
All right. That sounds dope, though. That sounds solid dope.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. So now that we're all liquored up with libations and lack thereof libations,
Ashe.
for me and Olive, let's move into our melanated senses. As you guys know, these are the things that we hear, see, taste, smell, and touch throughout the week that are full of melanation. Does anybody have a melanated sense that they'd like to share?
All right, so I'll go first with this one. So, part 2 of the toast. Now, I want to give them my melanated sense of hearing. In the hotel where we stayed, there was we were all getting our breakfast, and I wouldn't say all of us. It was myself, my brother, my sister, my cousin, and a few more of my other cousins. It's the complimentary breakfast that they give, and there was this little white boy with his mother. He was approximately, I want to say, 7 or 8. And he said, as we were all getting over there, he said, "Ma, hurry up and make my pancakes before the blacks take it all."
Oh, that's nice.
So the worker there, so this melanated sense is shout out to, her name is Joy. Said she said, "You know what? Breakfast is closed." They started. She's saying breakfast was closed. They started packing up already, and then when they left out, she was like, "I was just joking. It's not closed. They just can't be in here with us."
Wow.
So, because this was actually at the end of it, so she extended it a little bit longer, even though. So, my shout out goes to you. Thank you so much for that. That
For
sense
keeping
of
all the pancakes.
no, the waffles. Like
I'm sorry, all the
Oh,
waffles.
yeah, just because, and it was like my cousin also wanted to probably like go off, but one of my cousins wasn't there, which is a good thing, because that would probably became a spectacle, because the mother apologized, and my cousin was just very much like, well, it's. I mean, she's like, he can't help it. This is probably the ignorance that he gets from at home, and that was it. So, yeah. That's yeah. I got more stories, but I don't want to take up too much time.
Well, I'll go on a lighter note. I think the highly melanated sense that I will focus on will actually be sight. This past, well, I think when did I go? Sunday I went to go see Aladdin. So I had an amazing time. That movie was really good.
No spoilers.
And no, I won't give any.
I mean, I've
Have
heard.
you seen the cartoon?
I've heard it's like true to the
Then
cartoon.
there's no spoilers. Did you see it when it came out in '92? Okay, you're good.
Right? No.
Not
There's
everybody did, so no spoilers.
Well, no, I won't put out any spoilers if there are any. But what I will say, it was such a well done movie. I think a lot of us, we get into this habit of. We have like a childhood movie or a movie in general that is done really well by a great actor, and we say no one can ever live up to that ever again, and so we put it on the back burner, and then people want to redo it. There's other actors that are good out there, and so that doesn't mean that we're just going to stop reproducing it or like remaking it. And a lot of people had a lot of reservations about Will Smith playing Genie, and I think he did a very good job with taking Genie's character and making it as his own. He did an amazing job, and one of the things that I'm always really excited about seeing Will Smith in so many different types of movies, because he's been entertaining for years, and he's always doing something else. And I mean, this one is very play and theatrical like, and it's very interesting to kind of see him in that environment. So shout out to him. He made me want to act even more after that, because I said, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I definitely need to make sure that I stay on my A game. So shout out to all the people creating Aladdin, and then shout out to Will Smith for living up to what everybody hoped and expected to be.
Nice.
Shout out to you, Will Smith. I love you. I really do.
Do you have a melanated sense?
We're just going to go over my I love you, Will. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I would like to dedicate my melanated moments to two extraordinary women. For me, I don't necessarily choose one sense, because to me, I'm overwhelmed by all of them. So number one, Academy Award nominated actor Angela Bassett received an honorary degree from the HBCU Morehouse College. Whoop, whoop. And the second one goes out to the badass known as Serena Williams. Shout out to her. So last year, as we all know, Serena wore an all-black catsuit, which was designed by Nike to help her deal with her blood clots after she almost died in childbirth. So in response to that, this year at the French Open, she wore a custom design by Virgil Abloh, that's Abloh, in case I say his name wrong, that was for Nike, which were printed with the French words Mother, Champion, Queen, and Goddess. And it was just absolutely amazing. So here is a clip of her speaking after that match.
Serena, you are always sartorially elegant and you like to make a statement with what you wear. Today you wore a cape which made, I thought you looked like Superwoman. Firstly, could you tell us about the statement on your cape? And secondly, what superpowers did you have to use today to win the match?
Well, we have on the outfit, it has words it's in French, and it says queen, it says champion, and it says mom, and those are things that mean a lot to me and reminders for me, and for everyone that, that wants to wear it. Just remind everyone that they, can be champions and are queens. So I love that about it, and I don't know. My superpower today was just hanging in there, and just staying positive and for once.
Fourth word embedded in the print, if I'm not mistaken, déesse or goddess.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Those 4 words, that's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It is a lot to carry, but so is being Serena Williams.
Serena, here. Going back to the dress and the words on it, how do you feel that your sponsor was probably treating pregnant women differently until now, apparently?
Can you elaborate on that question?
Well, the New York Times said you kept your contract was kept intact during your pregnancy, and other women under contract with Nike lost some money.
Yes, I actually read that, so I understand that Nike has been really lately supporting women a lot, and it started with making a statement with me, and they said they want to make a change, and they want to support women that want to have families and that want to be moms. And I'm glad that statement was made, and I know that herefor and going forward, they're doing better, and that's what it's about. It's about learning from mistakes and doing better.
Serena, are you surprised that they had that policy in place, and why do you think they didn't apply it to you?
I believe that in the past, people don't perceive women athletes and having babies at the same time as they can still be athletes. And I feel like as time goes on and as technology changes and as, the world changes, people realize that we have to change our policies and we have to look at old policies and change them. And I think Nike wanted to do that, and they started doing that. And so I think they made a really bold statement by doing that with me, and I think I know actually that they're going to continue to make that statement.
Ladies, do you have one to share, maybe? Do you have an idea?
Yes, I think I do, actually. So my melanated moment or my melanated sense is a little bit of a combo. It's one of hearing, but it's one of fixing my face a certain way for people who are melanated versus what I would do for folks that are melanin deficient. So this week I was talking to my very good friend Sarah, who is melanin deficient and has twins. And she said that I am working on potty training her nearly 3-year-old daughters. And
I'm sorry. Yeah, the face.
Right, that's the face. That's the face that brown people give, right? But that's not the face of Crown Heights or Park Slope, where I'm in Brooklyn, and so I had to fix my face. My mind was I had a melanated mind, and then I had to fix my face to be like, oh, do you need some support?
This is a whole. I'm gonna need you to listen to our conversation about code switching. Go ahead.
I have so many questions.
I have so many questions.
I want to know okay. Well, you know what? The silver lining is that they're getting potty trained.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
What?
Silver lining. Better late than never.
Way late.
But better late than never.
So today's meal is going to be in lieu of Memorial Day. So as we know, that just passed. Rest in peace to all the soldiers whom we lost over the years throughout all the wars that has happened, not only in America, but all over the planet. And today our meal will be Memorial Day cookout. So a couple of things that are on the menu. As you know, you can bring your own dish. So if you're not happy with what I choose, bring your own dish. So we're going to have some barbecue chicken, some Cajun chicken. We got some chopped barbecue. We got some steaks. We got some shrimp skewers. We got some veggie skewers. We got some hamburgers and hot dogs for the children. And we got some macaroni salad and potato salad minus the raisins. I mean, like I said, bring your own meal.
Baked beans.
Baked beans.
Come
There
through.
you go. Beans at the table.
Yeah, what you...
Casserole. That's right. Palate on.
Okay. I like that. So as you know, we have two special ladies in the house. We have Deborah Kaplan. She is Assistant Commissioner, Bureau of Maternal, Infant, and Reproductive Health.
Yo. Woohoo. Come on.
Guys, I need y'all to know how much of a mouthful that is to say. Like, how do you actually, like, shorten that?
Beamer.
Important title.
Beamer.
I mean, it's an extremely important title.
I like it.
You like it? I like
Leave
that.
any part out.
Yes, come on for. Hold on to your credentials. Okay, you worked hard for them. You have them.
You did, yes.
And then we also have Kelly Davis. She is the director of New York City Birth Equity Initiative, and they are both here with the Department of Health, New York City.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So glad to be here.
Thank you both for being
Welcome.
here with us today. So this is just the part where we just kind of open it up to just kind of Q&A kind of style. But I think it's always important for our listeners to just kind of know a little bit more about you and why you guys are experts in this field and why they should, trust and listen to what you're about to tell us. So if you could just briefly just kind of tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are, got to the titles that you guys have, and just what your experience has been within the, maternal, infant, reproductive health fields.
Sure. So I've been at this for a long time, approaching my 65th birthday. So
Come on, shout out.
I'm proud of that. And I was a teenager right before abortion became legal. So this issue of reproductive rights and reproductive access to services has been something that's been a passion of mine since I was actually a teenager. And I'm a physician assistant, which is like a mid-level clinician, and I worked in healthcare and over again saw the issues around women's health and access to care as critical, and worked in public hospitals in New York City and other settings, and actually worked at Planned Parenthood for a number of years, and really decided that I wanted to get at this in terms of a public health effect, and how can we make changes that affect the whole population and that can really make a difference in people's lives through policy and education and programs, and to deal with the inequity I was seeing in care all over the city. And so I went back to school. I got into public health and have been working at the Bureau of Maternal, Infant, and Reproductive Health, a long name, since 2001. So I'm going on I'm over 18 years and been the assistant commissioner for the last 16. And we have stood side by side with people fighting for reproductive rights, and actually over the last 5 years have taken on a framework of reproductive justice, which was developed by black women, and then the phrase was actually coined in 1994 by black women who saw that reproductive rights and issues around abortion were not getting at the lived experience of black and brown women and black and brown people in terms of the broad issues around reproductive health. And so in my bureau, we brought up this issue of reproductive justice, and that has really changed and informed a lot of our work working with the community. And so I think now I have experience in policy, clinical work, health education, and running programs, and deeply committed and passionate to dealing with all the inequities, particularly that affect the reproductive health and lives of people in New York City.
Amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm black and I'm a girl with a vagina, so I feel like
that's where we're going.
that qualifies me. But I have been studying this for a number of years. I'm a third-generation birth worker. My grandmother was a neonatal nurse. My mother was a neonatal nurse. My father's physician, my brother's physician, and that didn't stop us from losing my brother Joshua, right? And that didn't stop my cousin from losing his daughter Madeline, or my stepsister from losing her son 2 years ago. And so reproductive health, Black families is just something that I have thought about, as we all do, most days of my life. And I've been working with that in a concentrated way since being a teenager with DV counseling, really getting through the history of how race complicates and how racism complicates, how Black and brown women experience their contraceptive options. I've been working at the health department for a number of years in certain spaces under some really, really influential, rebel-rousing Black women, including Dr. Mary T. Bassett, Dr. Aletha Maybank, and my mentor, Dr. Joy Career-Perry, who've really been guiding me over the past decade as far as research questions, community-based work, organizing, and been really blessed over about the past 2 years to join the team at the Bureau of Maternal, Infant, and Reproductive Health to really lead some innovative strategies for a problem that America has had since its inception.
That's great. Clearly, you're both very well qualified. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
One thing, Deb, that you said that I kind of wanted to ask you about was just the switch from the conversation. Well, maybe not necessarily like the switch, but just the increase of the term reproductive justice as opposed to just talking about reproductive health, like in general. And I think specifically using the term justice just obviously makes it like a political issue. It really signifies to people that this is what's happening in politics right now. And I mean, in my personal opinion, I don't think it. Anyway, I'm sure we'll get into all of that later. But just if in your experience, since you have been in this field for most of your life, you said, what have you seen in the difference of the way the conversation happens when people talk about reproductive justice as opposed to just reproductive health in general?
I think it's huge. And I have to say, for me, this has been a humbling experience, bringing on and thinking about that term. So, you know, the fight around reproductive health and reproductive rights has been, in many ways, what's gotten attention sometimes has been led by white women and white women-led movement that has looked at abortion or reproductive health in a very kind of single-issue way and not looked at the lived experiences of people of color in the country, in the city, and how that affects reproductive choice. And so what happened, and what I understand from really learning from Black women who've led this work on reproductive justice, and I need to give a shout out right now so I don't forget, to Loretta Ross. Loretta Ross, if people don't know, and look her up, is an amazing woman who was one of the Black women who coined the phrase in '94 and is a founding mother of Sister Song Women of Color Collective for Reproductive Justice. And in preparing for today, I read something she wrote on African American women and abortion. And what she showed is the way that reproductive justice looks, what didn't happen and what hasn't happened when we just talk about reproductive health, is it doesn't look at the overall issue of health, at the issue of the effects of structural racism on the lives of people of color and what that means around reproductive rights, for everything from the beginning of forced breeding under slavery to deciding whether or not you get reduced welfare benefits if you don't use birth control, to sterilizing women without their consent. And all of that gets to this idea of controlling a population of people and using women's reproduction to control a population. And so what reproductive justice does is it brings in, one, the history of oppression. So we just can't talk about abortion or about any of these issues without talking about the history of oppression. Why is it that a Black woman might not trust a doctor who's saying, why don't you use an IUD? It's great. like, are you telling me that because you don't want me to have children, or are you telling that to me because it's a good idea and it's something I could use? So, so it makes you look at this history of oppression and inform policies. 1, 2. It says reproductive health has to be looked at in terms of the overall issues of health and community. And so we're looking at the right to decide if you want to have a child, the right to decide if you don't want to have a child, and if you do have a child, the right to raise your child in a safe and healthy environment. So it looks very broadly at the issue of reproductive health as one piece of overall health. And I think that's the big difference, that we can't look at these issues as single issues. We have to look at the broad lived experiences of people and the history that brought us here.
So I just had a quick question then, because you kind of touched on something that I was going to ask you, and that was, I guess, what are some of like the overall alternatives in terms of what could be in place of anybody's decision, whether it be pro-choice or pro-life, because you have all of these fallouts essentially where, you know, you can't choose, you know, you can't do abortion, so now you're forced to raise a child that you might not necessarily want because of whatever circumstance, right? You might not have the money, you might not have the needs. So you talked about that, but I guess my question to you is, why do you feel that some women support it? Because there are some women out there that are like, yeah, no, you can't. There shouldn't be any pro-choice. It should all be pro-life, and knowing that there is that fallout that's there.
Well, first of all, let me just say that I really object to people who are against abortion using the term pro-life, because they are not pro-life. Many of them support the death penalty, for example. So pro-life for who? What about the lives of women? What about the lives after a child is born? Why are they not fighting to deal with the inequities in health care? What about the women who die? And black women are 8 times more likely to die of a pregnancy-related cause than white women in New York City. Why aren't they talking about that? They're just talking about embryos. That, you know, not to minimize those concerns, but it's not pro-life. I mean, it's unfortunate that they coined that term, because they are not pro-life, and they are anti-woman and anti-people. And I think it's important that we make that point, because they took that word. We shouldn't let them keep it, because I believe we are pro-life. We are the people who are fighting for justice for all people, including the right to abortion. So I think what I say to people who raise that issue is everyone has the right to their own opinions. We have religious, cultural, personal beliefs, and I totally respect anyone for what they believe. But that's different than imposing your beliefs on my body and on other people's bodies and lives. And that everyone, and what reproductive justice says, is that every person has the right to bodily self-determination. No man, no government, no anyone has the right to tell anyone. And we know in our country it's more likely that you're trying to control black and brown people. It's not across the board.
No, it is not.
And so it's inequitable, and we have to call that out and say that that you can have your opinion, but do not impose it on me. It is a personal and private decision that I need to, or any person needs to make, about their lives and and it is never taken lightly.
Okay, I'm glad that you said it, because, you know, I feel the same way. I feel like you should have a choice in terms of what you're doing with your own body. But I just think it's when I hear like somewhat like a woman say that, I just, you know, I kind of just cringe, because I'm just all like, why would you want someone else that you barely know to just control that? So I'm glad that you said it.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would add is, we live in a white supremacist, patriarchal society. Yeah. And people internalize those beliefs of inferiority, or of their being, you know, that the partner who's running the show and I should be at home and I should be, whatever that is, that's infused every day, and it's infused in little girls and little boys from day one.
Deb, you got me doing the church dance over here, because that is so true. And I say this all the time. And just to hear you say it as a confirmation is like, yes, I'm glad we're all on the same page, because it's the absolute truth. Like, there's so much fact to that. It's crazy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It just caught me in the moment.
No, you're not.
No, it's interrupting. I love it.
Yeah.
Kelly, I wanted to ask you, just in your day-to-day, like, outreach and development work and research, like, what type of people are you interacting with on a daily basis. I know you said that part of the reason why you got into this field was because you have a lot of family connections and a lot of family experience with maternal and infant health. But just, I want to know a little bit more about like what your kind of like day-to-day is.
Well, I would say a little bit about my day-to-day, but my day-to-day is heavily impacted by my life, where my friends are, and it's not just a New York City context. And that's why I think these kind of conversations are important. 100% of my nuclear family lives in the state of Mississippi, where there's one abortion clinic which terrorizes patients who happen to go in for a variety of reasons, right? Where a place where everyone knows your name, where your car, your name, your employer, all of that is subject to public scrutiny. It's also a state where my friends still reside who call me to say, I wanted to get on birth control, but my doctor refused to prescribe it to me because I'm unmarried and thinks I shouldn't be having premarital sex, let alone the fact that your periods are 10 days long, right? And like you can't see straight. Like, so that's the kind of context that I am in. In that context, we like to pretend it's not inside of New York City, but the world is here in New York City. Immigrants from every part of the country, every part of the world, right? So anything that's in this nation is in New York City. And so while I'm very fortunate to be working for the health department, where we really do protect the rights of pregnant people, of pregnant women, irrespective of your race, nationality, sexual origin, gender expression, or identity, everything that makes New York City great. We have those protections because, and we see those ads on the subway because this is still an issue in our very own city, right? Mm-hmm. The wait times, how do I, finding proper information, places that are advertising themselves as clinics that have licensed clinicians sometimes are not always the case. And I also know that New York City continues to be a place where, because of the South and the Midwest political atmosphere, where folks do continue to come and seek out services, life-saving services that they may need that they don't have access to, or they will be ridiculed for in their home state or home country.
Yeah, I agree with you. Someone just really close to me had just came up from the South.
That's right.
And because she couldn't afford it, and also because according to the state she was a little too far. She was further further along before she can actually terminate the pregnancy. And then she came here and had it done. And the idea of having to even do that when it's something that she needed. Yeah. And for very personal reasons, it was really something that she needed, being someone who was abused, but it just proceeded. I mean, well, it would have proceeded if she stayed in the state that she's in.
And some people can't get the resources to make that trip.
Right, yeah. That's right. Well, exactly, so even that is a function of privilege, but there are, people are still making the great migration, but for life-saving health care. And that's why I do what I do.
Well, let me ask you a question now. Since you brought this up, right now where we stand, what is the current situation or where we stand right now within all these states that have agreed? Where does New York City or New York stand with the Roe versus Wade?
So we are finally in a really good place in New York State. Okay. I want to just, if you don't mind, say a little quick history, which is important to know, because I think...
Teach us. That's why...
why you're here.
That's why you're here.
So
we can't speak, as intelligently as you pros can.
So in New York State was one of the first states to legalize abortion in 1970, 3 years before Roe v. Wade, before abortion became legal right to abortion became the law of the land. And before it became legal, there were illegal. So one thing to point out, if we make abortion illegal, it doesn't mean abortion goes away.
That's right.
It means that women risk their lives sometimes because they are so desperate because of whatever the personal reason is. They risk their lives and they will have an illegal abortion, which can lead to death. And in New York City, when it became legal, thousands and thousands of women flocked to New York City to get abortions in that 3-year period before Roe v. Wade was passed. And actually, 4 out of the 5 abortions of women in Texas were done in New York City
Wow.
during that period. And as well, one striking thing is that in 1970, there were over 100 septic abortions. Septic means that someone had an illegal abortion, they got an infection that could kill them. In 1971, there were 9 in New York City. So again, abortions didn't stop, but women stopped almost dying from them. So in New York State now, what was challenging is until January of this year, the abortion right law was in the penal code and the criminal code. And that made it very vulnerable. And why should abortion, which is basic health care, be in the criminal code? And so what happened in January is the Reproductive Health Act was passed. And we now joined several other states that have very positive, good laws. And it basically codifies Roe v. Wade, meaning that it makes what Roe v. Wade is now part of the law of the land in our state. And that means that abortion is now treated like health care. Overall, just like any other health care, there's no other health care that was in the criminal code before. So now an abortion no longer is.
I'm sorry, I think that's really important. No other type of health care was considered criminal.
Yes.
Right.
Except for abortion.
That's right. And now it's not in New York State, thank goodness. It was there, but even though we had this frail protection, it was very frail until this year. And so now it also ensures that qualified health providers can provide safe health abortion care without any fear of punishment. And that includes not just physicians, but physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and licensed midwife. If they're qualified, they can provide abortion care, which makes it much more accessible to many providers. And providers can now provide abortion after 24 weeks of pregnancy if a woman's health or life is in danger, or if the fetus is not viable. That's the thing that's getting more attention. And I do want to point out that over 90% of abortions occur in the first trimester, or and that's in New York City. It's true all over the country. It's a very, very small percent of people who are in a situation where their life is in danger, the fetus is not viable. And until January, those women had to travel, just like we talked about, Kelly talked about people coming to New York. Those women had to travel to Colorado to have a termination at the end of pregnancy if they had a situation like that. Now they can have those terminations in New York State. So we are in very good shape, unlike some other states in the country.
Right.
You know, see, I think it's because we live in such, we here as New Yorkers, we do live in such a bubble sometimes. And I think as far as our view, that we don't understand the depth of it in some of these other states and what they actually have to go through. Because, you know, what you see on television or what you see, what may be depicted in a film or on whatever type of program, doesn't look real in most situations for most native New Yorkers. So this conversation is needed across the board. So.
Absolutely.
So with that, I mean, like, this is very timely because there's so much in the news right now about what the abortion law that was passed in Alabama. So could you both, I think that it's the thing that happens when there's just, you know, a hot button topic. You just get all kinds of information and you don't know what's true, what's not true. You don't know how to sift through it. So thank you so much for talking about, like, the state that we're in here in New York. But just if either of you could just provide some clarity on the situation in Alabama.
Well, for starters, I want to just dispel the myth that right now you can still get an abortion, right? And so even some of the news coverage makes it seem like, you know, the law was enacted today. We know things take a while to be enacted, and if someone is in need of seeing their provider for the rest of this year, and, you know, we are fighting there are coalitions fighting across the nation, particularly in the South. I will say, just to bring it back to why we have to have reproductive justice and not just reproductive health, notice the states that are passing these restrictive, anti-women, anti-family bills are also the states that have the highest proportion of Black residents. Right. And so really reproductive rights and structural racism go hand in hand. And you can't you can't have just like one issue liberation. So I think that that's really the thing that's important to remember. Who's going to be harmed the most by these bills, right? It's folks that are folks that don't already have access to health care, because we already know that there's not Medicaid expansion where there should be in the South because it's a politically hot topic after the Affordable Care Act, right? So the lack of care, the inability to have jobs, supportive housing, healthy family structure, those things are legislated, right? Those are not just norms that have to do with individual choice. They have to do with policies that are purposefully enacted and that have been perpetuated over a series of years to centuries in the South, right? And are very, very tied with Black and brown women's like liberty and ability to move freely around the world.
Absolutely.
I have a two-part question. So, Kelly, before you were talking about just kind of the different things that kind of happens when a woman goes into a doctor's office and is expecting, a certain type of care and not necessarily receiving that certain type of care. I've seen more and more conversations about women who, go into their doctor, wanting X, Y, and Z and asking their doctor for that test or, to have X, Y, and Z, procedure done, and the doctor has discouraged them from it or just flat out said no. So with both you being with, in the positions that you're in, what can you say as far as from an advocacy standpoint? Like, what should we as women know when we go into the doctor's office? What should we know as far as like what our rights are? And then if we do encounter a situation like that where we are being denied access to care that we think that we should be receiving, how do we go about receiving that care? And then the second part of my question, sorry, I'll just give it to you all at once and then you can go. The second part of my question is specifically for women who want to go and get an abortion. What should they know and what should they do? And what should they expect as far as like how people might try to dissuade them, and then what can they do to kind of still get the result that they want?
All right, I'll start and then
I know
Kelly
it's a
will
very
chime in.
common.
I'm like, all part A, B, and C.
Okay.
So I know the first part is what can you, when you go in, and how people are treated, and how you should be treated. Am I right?
Right.
So I just wanted to say one thing that's about it's focusing on maternal care, but in partnership with we work at the health department with the Sexual and Reproductive Justice Community Engagement Group, and we co-created something called the New York City Standards for Respectful Care at Birth, and it's about the human rights that people are entitled to when they go in for care. And it grew out of all the publicity. You mentioned Serena Williams and the many other people, and we know who weren't listened to, even with the privileges she had, if their wealth and her good access to health insurance, she was still a Black woman. And while it wasn't specific to abortion, it goes over and talks about your rights and that everyone has the right to be treated with respect. Mm-hmm. And people should know that in New York City, while regardless of your health insurance coverage, and even if you don't have insurance and if you're undocumented, you can go to a public hospital, and we have 11 public hospitals and many health centers through our health and hospitals services. We have the largest public hospital system in the world, and they will turn no one away, and they strive to have continuity of care at all their facilities, and they are in communities all over the city. And people should know that they can call 311 in New York City, and I'm speaking specifically, obviously, about New York City, to find out where there is a facility where they can get care, even if they don't have insurance. And they are totally not connected to immigration or any way that anyone could be endangered. So one is you have the right to respectful care, and if you don't get it, you have the right to walk out and go somewhere else. If someone doesn't answer your questions, that is on them. You have the right to someone, if they seem rushed and you don't feel safe, or you feel that funny feeling in your stomach, that this person is biased, and many people are without even realizing it, and some are realizing it and are biased, and we know both happen, then you have the right to walk out and go somewhere else. It's also really good to bring someone with you, if at all possible, because it's really hard to advocate for yourself,
That's
especially if you're in pain or you're pregnant and you don't know what to do and you're emotional. You need a friend, family member, someone who you trust, who can be there and be your advocate and say, something's not right here, and be your reality check. You also, it's always good to bring in your questions ahead, because often when we go in and we see the clinicians, you feel intimidated. They're there in the all-know-it situation. And let me remember what your next question was.
Specifically for women who want to go in and receive an abortion, like what should they know?
So first of all, make sure, and you can find this out in New York City by calling 311. In other states, you can find it out, and I'll give the name of an organization that keeps track of that. There are many that do, but National Institute for Reproductive Health has a state by state what's going on, and there's information. But if you go, you want to make sure it's a licensed facility. Kelly alluded to these fake pregnancy clinics that try to look like a Planned Parenthood and aren't. They use similar words. They plant themselves nearby, and they will have you come in, and they will tell you all these fake lies about what abortion is, scary stories. It'll increase your likelihood of suicide. It'll all these breast cancer, all sorts of things. So make sure you go to a licensed facility, or that you're going to a private doctor who you can trust and that you know you can trust. The other thing that's important to know is that the earlier in pregnancy you can go for an abortion, the better and the safer. But overall, abortion is a very, very safe procedure, and one of the safest surgical procedures that exists of all the surgeries around there out. And another important thing to know is that if you don't want a surgical abortion, you can have a medication abortion. And more women are choosing that. In fact, I looked at the most recent data in New York City for 2016, and 20% of abortions in New York City were women who got medication, which means you literally pills. You're not having a surgical procedure, and that can only be done early in pregnancy. So it's good to know as soon as you miss a period to get tested and get a test either in a pharmacy or walk into a clinic. Our sexual health clinics now through the health department, they've been rebranded. They used to be the STD clinics. They're now the sexual health clinics, which we are so excited about. And they have lots of services, including going in and getting a pregnancy test. And you can go, no judgment,
emergency
no
contraception.
I'm so glad about that.
Sexual health clinic sounds a lot more appealing.
Yeah, because I've had
clinic.
several conversations. I don't want to cut you off, but I had several conversations about the things that they should just go get checked out, and it has nothing to do with STD.
Right.
But you should always go to if you have no health insurance or you have Medicaid or whatever your situation is, go there. Well, I don't have an STD. Well, if there's more there than just for that. But continue.
Exactly. No. You want to add, Kelly?
No, we have HIV testing, sexual health counseling, PrEP and PEP, which are our major arsenals, as you guys know from your previous episodes, from fighting the HIV/AIDS epidemic, services galore.
I would say one other thing about abortion. Even in New York City, if you go to get an abortion, you may be faced with people chanting outside, putting pictures, very awful situations, and they have escorts to support you. But I think it's important that you go with someone, that you don't go alone, and just have someone help you just get in that door and past, any kind of demonstrators that are making you feel uncomfortable, because it can be really hard to walk in that door. Mm-hmm. And once you're in, you're going to feel the support and so on. So don't delay if you're not sure. There's plenty in New York City. We are lucky that there's lots of safe, confidential services, and teens should know as well that many of the providers you can go to, like a Planned Parenthood and other facilities, are confidential. They will not disclose that you were in that clinic, and they will not share what you were there for.
And you know what? Just to time off of what you just said. Personally speaking, and this is something that I'm not afraid to talk about, I've experienced this because I have had an abortion, and I've had more than one. And I remember I was about 19 when it first happened, and I had went into a clinic in New Jersey, and there were people standing outside with signs. They were yelling, and at the time, my father had escorted me, and it was very, for me personally, was very embarrassing. It made me feel bad about myself. And, in the future, when I had it again, it's like I kind of developed a hard shell towards it because I knew what I wanted and I knew the decision I wanted to make for my body. So with that being said, with women who do go and have, let's say, more than one abortion, a lot of times when they go to their GYN, the GYN may say, let's see, a scarring on their cervix and say, oh, well, you've had this, so this means, you won't be able to have children or you won't be able to full carry. And we know that that's not necessarily true. So what would you say to young women or women, period, who have gone through situations like myself, who want to be able to carry full term in the future, who just doesn't have the confidence or have been misinformed or misled?
Well, I would say to you or any woman or any person who is seeking termination of pregnancy, that the right number of abortions is the number of abortions that you want to have or need.
Absolutely.
There is no maximum. There is no minimum after which you would likely to become infertile. All of these things are myths perpetrated in our community among women in order to, as we talked about earlier, control our reproduction.
I've heard that my
There
whole
is
life.
no magic number. I've heard that, you have to have less than 3, or if you don't want to have it, if you do, how many kids do you have? How many pregnancies have you had? These things are often perpetrated, sometimes even within the medical community, to keep this idealized version of what femininity should look like, what womanhood should look like. And there's only a bad number of abortions because of the stigma. There is no medical reason that someone who's had a previous termination of pregnancy, unless there's absent of complicating factors, that person cannot have the amount of healthy pregnancies that they want.
100%. I just want to underscore that, and that you also, every person, and if someone is having an abortion, find out if they will also offer you contraception right then and there, because if you don't want to be pregnant, you also have the right and to choose a method of contraception, and that should be available to you and easily available. So, but I think the idea of judging people on their choices and whether they had more abortions or if they don't use birth control, people have reasons that they don't use contraception or go with the method of abortion. And that is a personal decision, and it's part of that self-determination that we talked about earlier.
You know what's interesting? I was actually offered that method the first time, but what happened was I had different reactions to each of the birth control that were allowed to me. Let's say there was the pill, there was the patch, there was the needle, and there was the IUD, and each one of them gave me a different reaction that didn't agree with my body. But what's funny is as I got older, now I'm in my 30s, Depo-Provera is everything. Like, that works for me absolutely great. I mean, I have no periods. I don't miss it at all. But for me, that worked when I was younger. It gave it to me for 2 years straight. So, it's just unfortunate that some of our bodies kind of reject the medicine, or because of our hormones, our bodies react differently towards it. So, and plus there's many other reasons, health reasons for other people, religious reasons or such. I just wanted to just add that in there. But Depo, I love it, to be honest.
No, and it's so personal. So for some people, none of the methods are right, and they decide to use condoms.
Exactly.
And we know how important condoms are for preventing sexually transmitted infections and HIV. And that can be your method of birth control, too. And it works very well for people who use it regularly and use it. And, if it doesn't stay in the drawer, it actually really works well.
There you go.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
the men were absent there. Did you notice that?
I'll tell you something about these guys. They know when to, let the conversation happen. They know what their realm of expertise is.
Right, yes. Just laugh along. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that the...
That's it. Go ahead.
I mean, obviously, this is a conversation that I think that we could just continue to have, and I still have so many more questions that I want to ask you guys and have our audience hear. But to just, sort of wrap things up here, as you guys know, we're a bunch of foodies around here, and every meal ends with dessert. My favorite part of the meal. So if you could just give us it's Memorial Day themed, so just your favorite, picnic or cookout, dessert, or something that you just really have been craving. Tell us what that is, and then also, both of us, if you could just give us your final thoughts, just the information that you want the listening audience to walk away with from this conversation.
Okay, so the dessert, because I just had it and it was so amazing, is a brownie with whipped cream on top. Oh my God!
So
yep,
Blair,
sounds perfect.
I'm gonna go
yep.
ahead.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna illustrate what Blair is doing, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think you like yeah.
Oh, yeah,
my God.
we're
both
on
leaned up
board.
sweet.
We're on board.
That was amazing. I can tell you where to get a really good one later. But and I think I want to end with two things. One, I want to stress something Kelly said earlier. Remember that abortion is still legal in all 50 states, and to also for me the overarching theme around abortion that I want to stress is the right to bodily self-determination, and that includes having if you end up with 5 of whatever number of abortions, if you decide you don't want to have children at all, if you want children, the right to be able to raise them safely. I think all of this and this frame around reproductive justice and acknowledging that this came from black women and that it's been put into action by Sister Song Women of Color for Reproductive Justice. Check them out if you haven't heard of them because they're doing amazing work. They're based in Atlanta. The other thing I want to say is don't assume that the states that are passing the bans are lost causes because they are not.
That's right.
And when the question was put to the voters in Mississippi a few years ago, it was defeated, this heartbeat 6-week. And the 6-week ban passed by one vote. One representative who got intense amounts of pressure from the governor who signed the bill, the same governor who Stacey Abrams was running against. And I just do need to give a shout out to Stacey Abrams, who's a true champion of reproductive freedom.
Shout out, Stacey.
And
Miss
just
Abrams.
to remember why it's so important to vote and that the local voting matters and those pressures and the advocacy, what you do at your clinic and knowing those rights are important and fighting in your states and joining together on the national work. So many of us are fighting to protect reproductive justice, reproductive rights, and access to abortion.
So for me, desserts, it's a cross. I love popsicles. It's popsicle weather. I'm ready for a popsicle.
Okay.
But also
Rest of the you know there are popsicles available.
Right.
What flavor? What color?
red.
Hey, boo. You didn't say red last time. I said red.
You did, but I am red.
I also have a hankering for banana pudding for some reason. So
That's always welcome as well.
always for the
Go ahead,
Memorial Day.
Yoshida.
We had that this past weekend. Oh my God. Yes.
And my one takeaway for anyone who's listening, which is the whole world, is abortion is never, ever, 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 ever a moral failing. The end.
Wow.
Mic drop.
Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for taking the time to come to the studio and have this conversation with us. I'm extending the invitation. We are extending the invitation for if you come back.
We
you
need
wanna,
a part
we,
two.
We definitely need a part 2, like a full in depth, and we'll overhaul and skip past our normal things and get right into it because this conversation is really important. That's really what I wanted.
And more desserts.
Yes.
Right. As long as there's dessert, we'll come.
Wow.
There will always be dessert.
Well, on that note, people, thank you for taking the time to listen to another episode of Highly Melanated. As always, you can follow us on Instagram at Highly Melanated Podcast. You can email us at highlymelanatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can go to our website, which is highlymelanatedpodcast.com. And as always, you can follow us on Twitter. That is H_melanatedpod. Again, if anybody, if I really hope that this conversation that we've had and the conversation that we will continue to have will inspire you guys to start having these conversations with your friends, with the people around you, and start opening up more because people have these misconceptions, and that's why we want to have these two ladies on to help set the record straight.
Thanks so much for making
Thank
this
you.
issue so
Thank
important.
If anybody wanted to reach out to either one of you, how can they get in contact with you?
We can give you our
Website, email address, phone number, whatever you want to put out
Whatever,
there.
Yeah. nyc.gov/health. You can Google SRJ and you can learn all about our sexual and reproductive justice work. Also, the New York City standards for respectful care at birth are available in the most popular New York City languages by calling 311.
Perfect.
All right. So on that note, guys, peace, love, and
Reproductive justice.
Reproductive justice.
Reproductive justice.
Justice.
Especially if you have big ovaries.
And
That's
lots
right.
of melanin.
Good night, Blair.
Good night.